This is really funny. I don't even know if I can verbalize it. It's so obvious too. It's like I was just scrolling through this stupid app and looking at all these, they send you who likes you, and then you can read through and see your thoughts, and then you can agree to match or not. And you can tell by some of the front photos. I'm not suggesting anybody just base their decision on a photo, and certainly the front, but it is comical that you can find that rhythm and that pattern where you can tell by the very first shot what they're there for, and it's contradictory to what they'll say, right? Like, I'm trying to think of an example. Like, there'll be like a very cocky front photo, like with the way they're cocking their head, the way they're smiling, the whole get up is clearly arrogance. And I don't know that they even know that. I'm not suggesting they're conscious of it. But then it'll say like they want a long-term relationship, right? It's like, well, you don't even have a long-term relationship with yourself. How could you have one with another? And so then I looked at the age, right? And so like these patterns all pop up, and it's always somebody, usually, actually there's quite a few that are older too, but this particular one this morning was a younger age, but close in gap. It was like maybe 4 years or 6 years, not much. And I thought it was funny, and then as I was scrolling, I kept seeing that pattern, because of course, anytime you see it once, then you see it everywhere. And then of course, what do? I stop and pause and look over past patterns. And I had found it interesting how there has been that delayed gap with quite a few people who would spark an interest to some degree, but then it was clearly a gap, right? And it was like a delayed maturity gap, or something of this nature. And then it was like, so of course, as soon as I start to think this, they start to flash me scenes, and they start to talk to me at the same time I start to contemplate. And it was just comical in that everybody continues to grow, but if you're not choosing consciously to grow, it's maybe like everybody is changing is probably the correct word. Not everybody grows, because, right, you're either growing or you're dying, but you're always changing and morphing and evolving, but you could be devolving, right? It's like it seems like the gap has widened, right? And it's, well, because one is actually growing and the other one is not. So we can look at it like shrinking or dying, right? They're reverting backwards, they're going back. And sometimes that's not even necessarily the case. They could be maintaining, right? So that's stagnation. And so if you continue to grow, the gap still grows, because even if they're stuck and stagnant, you're still growing, so the gap still grows. And so, this is all obvious stuff, right? It's all obvious. It was just how it struck me and how it hit me was really funny to me. I don't know why it was even so, I can't even recall now what the one thing that struck me that was so comical. I think maybe all of it together, but there was something, and maybe it was the fact that I had at one point resonated with it, or one point fell for it, or one point played into it. Right, like I had written an earlier post about this along those lines, where sometimes we want something, but we can see clearly what it is, and we're not being real with ourselves, like why we want what we want. And so we will dumb ourselves down, which is dangerous. It's really dangerous, and it's manipulative, and it's bad, and it's wrong, right? Like, it would be much better for me to be like, look, we are not on the same wavelength at all. You aren't worthy of me, right? And I'm a complete asshole and I totally just want to utilize your body. So sit down, shut the fuck up, right? And right? And it's almost like then they have the choice too to be like, bitch, get the fuck out of here, right? Because then you can also interpret that in many different ways, where it's like, are you elevated if you're settling for less or utilizing another, right? We could have this argument so many different ways. I find, as you know, I find human behavior and thought fascinating. And it's also, I was going to say taboo in a sense where sometimes we will indulge with our shadows. We'll entertain things that we know are not good for us, that are not for our highest and best, for that indulgence. But again, that is a slippery slope and can be, it's like, how well do you know yourself and how well do you love yourself and how well, like how in charge and control are you? In other words, how can I say it better? Where it's like, I think it's easier to visualize it, but maybe for me, if you say like the angel and devil within, right? And so when you let your devil run the show, do you have agreements with your devil? Like, are you really in charge of your devil when you allow your devil to step up? Or is your devil really stronger than you? And if you let him out of the cage, God knows what'll happen or when you'll be in charge again, right? Like, how in control of you are you and how well do you know you? I don't think most people do, because we haven't taken the time to. We've just allowed life to flow over us, more or less, right? We haven't taken the reins. We haven't chosen. And we've talked about this so much, but it's because I think a lot of times people don't recognize their own power. And they are always looking outside themselves. So it is always the comparison, the competing, the judging, the determining. In other words, you could look at somebody else's life and they keep showing this. It's kind of like the Karate Kid, right? They keep showing the old man, the master. He loved his life and he was the master of it. And he was choosing everything consciously. But somebody else could look at that and be like, that sad old man who lived, whatever, because they knew nothing truly about him. They didn't know his level of mastery, and he was at the peace he was at because of loving himself and mastering himself and looking at his internal demons and facing those fears and indulging in them in times and whatnot. And so if you spend so much time focusing on another or judging another or deeming what you want based on another, you're shortchanging yourself because you're not really getting to know yourself. And you could be missing out on getting to know that other person, like that person who has mastered so much you've deemed boring or you've deemed whatever. Meanwhile, they were the gold mine who could have elevated you, right? Yet you didn't want to, I was going to say, dim yourself or diminish yourself because you were judging. You were judging that you were diminishing oneself by wasting your time, right? And meanwhile, that would have been the most valuable use of one's time. And none of it matters. None of this matters, right? Like it has to be a matter of, are you consciously deciding? Are you using your tool for your advantage, for what feels best for you? Or is it really running you because you are thinking on how to get from outside yourself, which means it's running you. Your demons are running you because they're telling you you're lacking something. And you're required to reach outside yourself to take it from another. That's a lie. So if you're letting that lie run your show, you're not running your show. You're not in charge. You're not at peace. You're always going to be chasing that. So if you let those lies, those demons, those voices of comparing and competing and judging run you, that's what's running you. You're not running you. You're not thinking on your own. You're not choosing. You're not able to choose because you're in fear, you're in fright, you're in lack. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening. You can now purchase an audio journey with me using the link below.